100 has closed up 22 points at 75.04. The pound buys $1.29 and €1.17. LBC weather clear and cold for many areas tonight, with some frost turning windier from the west, a low of -3 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Caroline Rundell.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 3 minutes past 8 on LBC. You can watch us live this hour on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk. You can watch us on the YouTube channel, Facebook page or Twitter feed. We are with Dave Ward, General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. I think this is it the third or fourth,
might be the fourth
time you've come in to see us. We always get some really interesting calls to you, Dave. You provoke people in a good way. The CWU is one of Britain's leading trade unions, and it's not very often that trade union leaders actually do this sort of thing. We've had this conversation before. I think they should do a lot more. We did have Len McCluskey in, though, not that long ago. So if you would like to put a question to Dave about the world of trade unions, the world of the Labour Party, the world of work, 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Now, you've made clear over the years you're a big fan of Jeremy Corbyn. That didn't work out too well, did it?
Well, look, I will answer that, but let me just talk first about the priority for us at the moment as a trade union. I know, I'm more than happy to talk about all of the issues.
We'll come on to that.
You're going to talk to me about the Royal Mail strike then?
I will talk about all of that, but I think a lot of
whether Boris Johnson's going to support it or not.
I think a lot of our listeners will be quite interested to know what you thought about what happened in the election.
Well, look, what happened clearly was that a combination of things. One, a divided party throughout Jeremy's period as leader. Two, the leadership itself has to accept some responsibility for that. I think a poorly executed campaign, and without any shadow of a doubt, Brexit. And you know, Iain, that I've been on your show several times, and I've spent the last couple of years when this question has come up, that I think the biggest mistake Labour made was to abandon the manifesto commitment of 2017 to respect the referendum vote. And I don't think that it ever recovered from that, in truth. I think it became an own goal that the Tories took advantage of. The other thing I would say is you've got to, I said this at the TUC General Council when we were all sort of analysing what went wrong. You've got to also say what the Tories done right. And this is one of, I think, the problems that Labour's got to acknowledge. In 3 simple words, get Brexit done. Johnson not only smashed Labour's Brexit position, but he also positioned the Tories as the party that wanted to get on and deal with the domestic agenda, which was meant to be Labour's strong suit. That was a very clever line, a very simple line. It cut through more than anything else.
But it was also a line that was telegraphed months before. It wasn't something that took people by surprise, was it?
Therefore, what I'm saying, but the party was divided, wasn't it? You say that. Was it? I'm not sure it was as divided as some people say. Obviously, a lot of MPs were not in favour of Jeremy Corbyn. We know that. Well, on Brexit, yes, it certainly was. But generally, I would say that Jeremy Corbyn, he controlled the Labour Party. Still does to a great extent. Look, the way I would see that is that he was elected leader twice. In a massive vote in favour of his leadership. But there were people working against him from the outset, and that never stopped. And they had strategies to undermine him from day one, and they need to own the result as well. The people that deliberately set out. There were people that were going round openly saying on shows like yours probably and all across the media, I'd rather that we lost the election and had a new leader than actually get into power. And now the same people now are probably going to say you've got to have power before you can apply your principles.
Remember, I'm trying to think of examples of that. Have you got examples of that?
Well, I think that there's a lot of... I'm not going to get into, calling out people on air about that. You know that there was a campaign to undermine him from within the Labour Party.
Yeah, there was, but after the second leadership election, that kind of went away, didn't it? There were clearly people who were never going to be fans of Jeremy Corbyn in Parliament.
I don't think it ever went away in the Labour Party machine. I think that Jeremy inherited a machine
but he
that
had
wasn't
control
within.
of the NEC.
Yeah,
he had all of his people placed in the leading election positions. Carrie Murphy was moved to
at
run
the end of the
election
day,
campaign.
Brexit was the issue that lost, in my view, Labour the election. You cannot wave away the reality of the geographical nature of that result. And Labour, and I'm not saying that you should just look at the result through the prism of Brexit. It was decades in the making, this disconnect with working class people. But, we betrayed the trust that those people had put in us in 2017. And we never listened to that. We carried on being obsessed with seeing everything through Brexit. And I think Johnson took advantage of that. It's like we opened up the heartlands. We give him the key and he filled his boots. And I think anyone who wants to argue that that wasn't the fundamental issue, I think is wrong.
Well, if anyone would like to talk to Dave about what happened in the election, the number 0345 6060 973. Well, let's move on to what you wanted to talk about. You've called a strike ballot. Tell us all about that.
Well, you may recall that we had a strike ballot. We got a fantastic result. 97% of our members in something like nearly an 80% turnout voted for strike action. And we got an injunction against us. And in our view, that was an outrageous decision. We'd campaigned fantastically well during that ballot. We'd got our members connected to what the issues in the dispute were. They were clearly supporting the union. I have to say they always do in our union, because we've got a great structure at workplace level where local reps still have power and are still connected every single day of the week to the membership. But we lost it because a judge agreed with Royal Mail that we'd interfered with a ballot. And, we're not deterred by that. We are now...
Did you not appeal it?
We appealed it. We lost the appeal. But that's to do with the trade union laws. That's to do with the establishment today. These laws weren't put there.
They must have had some reason for thinking that you had...
Well, one of the reasons, and it's more about what the dispute's about. Let's get onto that in a second. But one of the reasons was that they said that we had effectively created a workplace ballot by campaigning and encouraging people online, on social media, to show that they were supporting the union. So in workplaces up and down the country, a lot of our members were putting videos online collectively of them, showing that they were supporting the union. In some canteens, they were opening their envelopes and filling them in. That was one of the issues. So they were saying they didn't fill them in private, in that sense. Now, it's a crazy decision. I think anybody who looked at it was amazed that they got away with that on such a huge vote. So we're reballoting. This is about the very future of Royal Mail. And I make a serious point when I say I'm really interested to see what Boris Johnson is going to make of the first big industrial dispute since he's become the Prime Minister. Because if I follow what he's been saying, he's going to stand up for Britain. He's going to stand up for British workers. Well, this is one of the greatest companies in the history of Britain, Royal Mail. And if this is allowed to continue in the direction that the board want to take this, we will see the end of Royal Mail as we know.
So what is the actual issue?
So the issue is that we've had a number of agreements that over the years have set out the direction that the company should take jointly with the union in trying to, build our future. We're not in denial that letters are in decline. We never have been. It's always been the union that's been pushing the company to invest in different areas for the future. But the problem is, driven by privatisation, driven by the power of shareholders, in that they have to be prioritised, they have to get a dividend, is that the leader of the company, who used to own a European parcel company, has come in and he wants to set Royal Mail up purely as a glorified parcel courier. And what we're saying is, one, that's outside of all of the commitments that were made in the agreements that we've had. There are other issues around, there's an hour outstanding on a shorter working week that we agreed that hasn't been introduced, and they're all related to this change programme. What we're saying is, a company like Royal Mail, and I always say, I think this goes to the heart of some of the problems in British industry today. Are we going to allow that company to just wither on the vine, because that's what will happen if it just becomes another parcel courier, we will lose thousands upon thousands of jobs. And we're saying to the company, what about being a bit creative? What about looking at the infrastructure that you've got at your disposal every single day of the week? What about saying, well, maybe postal workers, we could expand their role in communities. We could see postal workers working in a way that brings an end to social exclusion. We could see at a very local level and at a regional level, we could create tailored services that are bolted onto the national service that Royal Mail delivers that may help grow the local economy and small businesses. We could use frontline postal workers, that's the investment we'd like to see, in those frontline postal workers to actually create that link. This could be very innovative. So what I'm getting at is, rather than the same old thing happening where those who believe in privatisation, what the pressure that we're under now is that they've got to get a return on their investment, and this guy takes the quickest route to that. So what is he going to do? It's fairly obvious that as this moves forward, the first step is to say, I'm setting up a separate parcels company, and I'm only going to concentrate on parcels. What that does, it accelerates.
But that is a growing market, isn't it?
We want to be part of that market. We're up for that. It's how you do that, and not in isolation to other ideas.
So what reaction have they given to your idea about the social exclusion thing?
Well, there was some very small, not very wide tests on whether or not there was a market for it. But that's not going to happen. The point that we're making is that you've got to signify that you're prepared to invest a lot of money in exploring and developing those opportunities. And importantly, the centre of Royal Mail has got to let go. It's got to allow some of its frontline workers, frontline managers, people who are closer to where the customers are, to be part of developing the strategy for the future.
You see, all of this leads me to think, well, I mean, that all sounds perfectly reasonable, but why call
I'm glad you agree.
Why call a strike ballot?
Well, because the company...
Is it because you're running for re-election as General Secretary?
Absolutely not.
Whip them up a bit?
You know that's not that, and we'll come on to that if you want to talk about that. But no, we're doing this because the company, we wanted talks. After the injunction was granted, the union pushed hard for talks, and at one point it looked like we were going to have those talks, and we're still up for talks now. I've said this several times. You don't become a union leader if you believe that the objective is to have a strike. In my view, the objective is always
but that's what
to
a lot
reach
of people
an agreement.
think.
No,
I mean, a lot of people,
we are defending our members' jobs, terms and conditions,
I get that.
And the service for the public.
But you know that there'll be lots of people listening to this programme now who will say, well, trade unions, I mean, it's all about strikes, isn't it? And it's very difficult to persuade people out of that view.
Well, let them come on and we'll have that debate with them.
Well, let's do that, because we've got lots of calls in at the moment. We'll come to David and Paul in a second. Dave Ward is with me, General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. You can watch us on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk, on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. It's 8:15.
This is LBC.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm.
I am a force for safety.
For fairness.
For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer.
And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
If your dentures or loose and missing teeth make it hard to eat or make you self-conscious about your smile, TDC Smile in a Day dental implants could be the solution for you.
I smile. I'm a lot more confident. I don't have to talk with my hand over my mouth. If I'd have known the outcome and how it would have changed me, I just wish I'd gone to TDC years ago.
Let TDC restore your teeth, your smile and your confidence. Book your free consultation. Visit smileinaday.co.uk. or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
Smile in a day, TDC.
It's nearly Valentine's Day, but don't worry if the forecourts run out of cheap roses, because in tomorrow's Lottoland's Millionaire Super Draw, you could win £105 million. So to share the love, we're spoiling you with 3 chances to win for the price of 1. Visit lottoland.co.uk to claim your 3-for-1 offer and place your bet. That's amore! That's 3 bets for £2.50. 18s and over. Offer for new customers only and may only be used once. Offer ends 14th of 2nd, 2020. Terms apply. BeGambleAware.org.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
At Wix, we'll create your dream kitchen from design to show-off ready and take care of everything. And now, save a third on showroom kitchen units. Book your free design appointment today. Cure your house embarrassment with Wix. For minimum spend, terms and exclusions, see wix.co.uk.
Standard. Stagnant. Same old, same old. That's not how you describe London. We're, well, different. London loves bright new ideas, embraces vibrant, evolving communities, and isn't afraid of standing out. We deserve an energy company that's as different as we are, one that's fair and affordable for all Londoners. London Power, a different kind of energy company.
Iain Dale on LBC.
It's 18 minutes past 8. Right, let's go to your calls. Dave Ward is with me, General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. Paul is in Hemel Hempstead. Hello, Paul.
Hello there, Ian. Lovely to speak with you.
Hello, Paul.
Listen, Dave, one trade unionist, one socialist to another. It was a bad day for us when we lost. Me personally, I voted. I didn't vote. I didn't vote at all because I couldn't vote Tory. Because I come from Liverpool originally. I know what that woman did to Liverpool. You know what she did to Liverpool.
Don't fight the last war, Paul. She. Do you know how long it was ago that she stopped being Prime Minister?
Can I just interject
20 years.
Ian, you don't understand very much about Liverpool.
I think I understand enough to know that it was 20
really,
years ago.
With respect, we remember those of us who are alive what that woman did to Liverpool. And her policies helped kill my father in many ways. So please don't say that to me because I speak for many in Liverpool.
Okay, well, let's get on to your question,
Hillsborough
Paul.
as well. What happened there? And, okay, please, I respect Harold Macmillan. I respect Winston Churchill. Please, just, if I want to attack Margaret Thatcher and criticise her policies, I will.
Okay, well,
I respect you
okay, all right,
and what you believe.
All right, you just have. Let's go on to your question.
Okay, we lost because we were in denial about the Brexit issue. We seemed to feel that there needed to be a second referendum. That was patronising to many, many Labour voters because it said you didn't really understand what you voted for. I don't think the party could see that or understand it. I still don't think the Starmers, the Thornberrys, the Lewises have really understood why the North have turned against them. They seem to be putting this down to issues that have built up over the years. Yeah? And that is partly true. But I think there was a fundamental belief that democracy was being overturned. And I think when Boris came up with this slogan about get Brexit done, it resonated and people gave him a chance. I personally think he's going to let them down. I hope I'm wrong, yeah? But at the end of the day, I still think the Labour leadership need to go away and look at themselves and think about where it went wrong and how they can fix this.
Well, you see, that's an interesting point that you've raised there, because I see very little evidence that any of the candidates for the leadership really have addressed that. And unless you understand why you lost and how you lost, how can you possibly then create a new strategy, Dave, to take the party into the future?
I agree with Paul's analysis, as I said in my opening remarks. I think that it is time to move on, though. So one of the things that you've got to understand, or the next Labour leaders got to understand, I mean, it's a long journey back. If you look at the votes and the nature of the votes that Labour will need to win back and where they are geographically. But I want to know really whether Labour are really going to move on from Brexit. And I think where Paul was edging towards is that my personal view is I don't think some of the candidates will really move on from Brexit. Whereas I do believe Rebecca Long-Bailey will move on from Brexit, and she will set out a more positive vision of what the UK could be under all of the same strong principles, socialist principles, I would say, but solutions to big problems that this country faces, whether it stays or leaves Europe. These problems are huge. You know, we get on to talk about that, climate change, the future world of work. It's just, we're sleepwalking into, I think, something that is going to be devastating unless there's a lot more attention paid to what the future is for workers.
Well, I think she's certainly got something big to say on that tomorrow, but I think it's embargoed, so I might ask her about it, see if she'll talk about it. I don't know. Paul, thank you very much. By the way, I got it wrong. Thatcher went 30 years ago, not 20. Yeah. Can't do my sums, can I? Tom is in Woburn Forest. Hello, Tom.
Hi, you all right?
Very good.
Hi,
what would you like to say?
Well, firstly, I'll just start out by saying, personally, I think Liverpool need to get over this victim complex because they seem to have one about every single issue in the world.
I wouldn't travel up to Liverpool too soon.
A lot of people in Liverpool will find that very offensive, Tom.
I think there's some justification.
They find it very offensive, but they might as well get used to it, and they might as well, move on with their lives. They'll do a lot better in that case. But anyway, my question was, basically, Royal Mail, they hold the country to ransom. They've got almost a monopoly on delivery. I mean, they've got post boxes all over the country and that kind of thing. Do you not think it's time for them to change and innovate and adapt?
Well, Tom, that is the whole point that we're saying as a union. We're a union who recognises that the world has moved on in terms of communications. Every single postal worker sees that every day of the week. What we're not prepared to do is accept that this company should just be left to wither on the vine. This is the reverse situation to what you're thinking here.
But why
a union that wants
why do you
to change.
think the company wants to wither on the vine? Because surely the management wouldn't want that.
No,
nor would the shareholders.
No, what they want.
It's a strange thing to say.
No, what they want is to enter into one market, and they want to sell off over a period of time the rest of the company. So they'll want to sell off the logistics arm of the company. They'll want to sell off their big mail centres. They'll want to sell off some of the delivery offices. They'll want to get rid of that part of it and concentrate solely.
Why don't you take it over then?
Take what? The company over?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they want to get rid of those bits of it and you think they're viable, why shouldn't a trade union become a business?
Well, actually, I do believe in workers having a lot greater say over the control of the company. And I think if people had looked carefully at Labour's manifesto, I think it was about shifting power back to workers right across the UK. And actually, I do believe that is something that we should be doing. If we look at the post offices, for example, we're running a campaign to stop post office closures, which is part of the problem with high streets and banks moving away and post offices and communities. I'd like to see us, and part of our campaign is going to be to open a post office up. And I'd like to see the workers in there working in some form of cooperative to make that a success, and I believe it will be.
OK, Tom, thank you for your call. Let's go to Dean, who's a new caller in Stoke-on-Trent. Dean, what would you like to ask?
Oh, hello, Dave.
Hello, Dean.
Well, I'm a CWU member,
yeah,
as is my wife. I can't mention the company, it's telecommunications. However, the focus has been on BT and the Royal Mail, but there's other areas of the CWU which really needs to focus on in the communications industry.
Yeah, I agree.
We are in that in said industry.
Yeah.
We're not recognised, and we've been CW members for 10 years. I used to be a rep.
Yeah.
My wife has been a rep until recently. She's been suspended by the company. cut a long story short, my wife's had a nervous breakdown at work. She's been bullied and harassed. And her... and she's let things go. Our membership lapsed, but she'll still be doing a rep. No one's told us, because our Birmingham branch hasn't informed us or anything. So we were approached to get representation for Sue, but she's been representing people all year, 2019. And then told that we had no cover because it lapsed. So we had agreed with our local area to back pay the payments.
Well, that shouldn't be a problem then, Dean.
A branch, bear with me, let me finish. Our branch intervened and stopped the payment. So one of the reasons she's in the position she is because she's a rep.
Yeah.
And ironically, now we've been thrown to the wolves. Your secretary picked up my email today, in actual fact, and I want you to read the email that they didn't pass it on to you.
Yeah. And Dean, let me say the circumstances you've just described are not acceptable to us as a union in that sense. And I'll look into that. I promise you that. If you sent an email, and if we don't look into it, now I don't know. Well, I'm going on the basis of what you've said.
We've got Dean's number.
Yeah,
we'll
contact him. And please, if we don't resolve that, then you come back onto Ian's show and you tell him that we haven't resolved it. But I get the point you're making.
I appreciate that, Dave.
So you're okay. You're okay for us to give Dave your number, yeah?
Absolutely.
Fine.
Dave, the email was sent last night.
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
It sounds quite a complicated situation.
Yeah.
Let's go to David, who's in New Cross. Hello, David.
Hello, Dave.
Hello, David.
Dave Ward, I think he's a really good union leader. I was in the post office 25 years ago. I remember him representing me. I really think he's a good leader. And, right, for my question, I remember Alan Johnson. What does Dave Ward think about Alan Johnson's comments after Jeremy Corbyn got defeated, that he couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag? Bearing in mind, Alan Johnson...
I think he actually said not being able to lead the working class out of a paper bag,
right.
Didn't he?
Bearing in mind, Alan Johnson was a former
your predecessor
of the CWU.
Yeah. Let me be diplomatic and say...
don't be diplomatic.
I always thought Alan was a better Labour Party politician than he was a trade union leader. And I didn't agree with his comments, and I saw him appear on a number of shows saying similar things. But Alan was a minister in Biz, as I can't remember
in the days when Labour used to win elections.
In the days when Labour were winning elections, he was a minister. And, some of the things that happened in our industry, like opening up the industry to unfair competition, we would put that, and that's another story, but has had a dramatic effect on Royal Mail. Labour could have done something about that, and I think people like Alan could have done something about that, and they didn't. Now, I think Alan is clearly a very intelligent guy. I think he probably at one point might have been the person that could have led on from Gordon Brown in that intervening period, and I know a lot of people felt that way. But as a trade union leader, I think we had our differences. I think Alan knows that, and I know that. But having said that, he's a decent guy.
But, I mean, the substance of his accusation, though, I mean, you've got to address it because it was Labour's worst electoral performance since 1935. And the leader has to take responsibility for that. And I'm not sure that Jeremy Corbyn really has done, has he?
I think that what Jeremy has done since then is act in a very dignified way. There's one thing that I think Jeremy will always do is he will put the party before himself. Now, if you see that he hasn't personally come out and said and took it on the chin, well, I haven't followed every conversation, every interview. I know as one of his supporters, the very following day, in the statement that we put out, I acknowledged that leadership was part of the problem. I mean, there was a piece in Private Eye the other week someone brought my attention to, which said that even me, one of his strongest supporters in the trade union movement, was saying 6 months ago that he was a hard sell on the doorstep, as though it was, and it said privately I was saying it. I actually said it on a video talking to our members about some issues. I acknowledged it, but people done a job on Jeremy. And And I'm prepared to accept that as a leader, he has to accept, of course he has to accept ultimately responsibility for that, and he's paid the price for that.
Do you not think he did a job on himself, though? Because in 2017, I mean, all of this stuff about the IRA, Hamas and all the rest of it, it was all around in 2017, but it didn't seem to matter. And yet in 2019, it did matter, and Labour voters in solid Labour seats all over the country were saying we're not voting Labour because of Jeremy Corbyn. It wasn't all to do with Brexit. A lot of it was to do with him.
I think there was a number of factors that came together during that period, and I think the biggest one of all, if I could be critical of Jeremy on this show, I would say perhaps he wasn't himself enough following that election. And the issue that he wasn't himself enough on was Brexit, because I think he was probably, in the shadow cabinet, the strongest committed supporter of the commitment to respect the mandate, to respect the referendum result.
And it's odd because he was in control of the shadow cabinet, he was in control of the NEC, and yet didn't feel able to push that point of view through.
Well, I don't think that he was able to. I think he was facing... I mean, look, there's some truth in politics sometimes that if you've got division, to keep unity, which people were also saying had to be done, he had to compromise.
Okay. Right.
I don't think he made the right compromise in that sense.
We're going to go to the news and then we're going to take more calls. Lots and lots of calls coming in, which is always very good. 0345 6060 973. You're listening to LBC. It's 8:33. News with Caroline Rundell.
Public health officials say the UK's third case of coronavirus involves someone who's recently travelled from Asia, but not mainland China. It's thought they've been treated at a specialist unit in central London. President Trump's condemned the dirty cops and horrible people who've tried to remove him from office. He was speaking at the White House following his acquittal by the US Senate last night. The Home Office says more than 3 million EU citizens have applied to live and work in the UK after Brexit. The most applications came from people in the East London borough of Newham. If applicants are successful, they can use the NHS, study and access benefits. LBC weather, clear and cold for many areas tonight, with some frost and fog patches developing, turning windier from the west, and a low of -3.
This is LBC.
Is your smile missing from your photos? That's where Metamorphosis Orthodontics can help. We pride ourselves on putting our patients first, ensuring you feel calm during your visit and confident when you leave. From traditional fixed braces to discreet Invisalign teeth straightening, our knowledgeable and experienced team can help you transform your smile. Visit us at our beautiful practice in Parsons Green, South West London. Book an appointment today by texting SMILE to 66777 or visit metamorphosisorthodontics.com.
Hey, pretty smiling people.
At Morrison's, celebrate Valentine's Day with a pack of 2 British rump steaks for £5. Morrison's.
Majority of stores while stocks last. 500 grams, end Sunday the 16th of February.
You know it'll happen. That dodgy boiler will finally pack up, and it'll do it on the coldest day of the year. So the moment you decide you can't put it off any longer, get a quote from British Gas. You can spread the cost of a new boiler interest-free over 2 years and get £200 off when you get a quote by the 29th of February, or £400 off for existing home care customers. British Gas, here to solve. Search British Gas new boiler. Conditions apply.
What van carries over a tonne? What van has class-leading fuel economy? What van? The answer's in the question. The What Van Light Van of the Year 2020. The Vauxhall Combo Cargo. Limited stock now available for only £199 a month and £199 initial rental, excluding 20% VAT on a 2-year lease. Other rental periods available. Search Combo Cargo offer and hurry down to your local retailer. Vauxhall carries British business. Business users only. Initial rental of £199.98 plus 23 months at £199.98. Contract hire on Combo Cargo Edition L1 1.5 Turbo D 100 PS. 20,000 total contracted miles. Limited availability subject to status. T's and C's 18 plus. Price excludes 20% VAT. You will not own the vehicle. Vauxhall Finance PLC trading as free to move lease.
The UK has now left the EU, and we're in a transition period until the end of the year. Throughout this period, the government will be forging new partnerships with the EU and the rest of the world. This could lead to new arrangements for trade, travel and business. To find out about the changes and how they might affect you, go to gov.uk/transition.
Iain Dale. on LBC.
It's 8:37. Dave Ward is with us, General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. You can watch us on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk, our YouTube channel, Facebook page and Twitter feed. Let's continue with your calls. Rebecca is in Salford. Hi, Rebecca. Now,
Hi, Ian.
Who do you want to see as leader of the Labour Party?
Me.
Becky Long Bailey.
That would have been a headline if you'd said somebody else, wouldn't it?
No, there's only one me. Definitely one to choose.
Now, how important was it to you to get the endorsement of the CWU?
It was hugely important. I mean, they're such a great union and they've been campaigning for their workers who've been going through a terrible time under the current government. So to get their support, particularly because they'd been helping with a lot of the big ideas, the big policies that had been developing over the last few years, from the green industrial revolution through to bringing Royal Mail back into public ownership. So it was hugely important to get their confidence, really.
And in terms of the trade union proposals, work proposals that were in the Labour manifesto, are all those going to, if you become Labour leader, are all of those going to still be valid, or will you want to tweak things?
No, they'll all be within my policy programme going forward. But one of the things that we fell down on in the general election, aside from Brexit and many of the other issues that I'm sure you're going to be talking about tonight, it was that inability to articulate what many of our manifesto policies would do for people's lives, and certainly the trade unions and the workers' right policies. It was all about improving quality of life and security for our communities, really. So when we go into another general election, we've got to have that message where we talk to our people and tell them that we're the party that's about raising up their aspirations and making sure that they can achieve that quality of life that they should be having now.
See, that's really interesting, because I've always thought that successful political leaders are leaders who can articulate optimism and aspiration. And I think that is one area where Jeremy Corbyn really fell down. And I haven't really heard any of the other leadership candidates say that in the way that you just did.
No, and that's right. And one of the things that certainly struck me was we've talked a lot about helping those who were, struggling to make ends meet and those that were being attacked by the government through their austerity programme. But we didn't talk about how the vast majority of people were feeling. Many people, they've got jobs, they feel happy, they want to do better. They don't want to be told that their life is terrible and we're going to save them from themselves and remove the scales from their eyes. But they want a government that gives them that aspiration that says, look, we'll help you do better. We'll make sure that your children have a secure, happy life going forward, and your children's lives will always be better than yours. And that's what we were going to do through our policies, but that wasn't what people were hearing on the doorstep, unfortunately.
Becky, can I just ask a question? First of all, when we endorsed...
This is going to be a zinger.
No, when we endorsed Becky, we took the most democratic decision of any of the trade unions. So we got all of our branches together. We asked all of the candidates to write in response to a number of questions about their future policies and how they would run the party. And it was our branches, over 500 people in a meeting, who had a vote on any of the candidates that they wanted to select from. And Becky won that vote decisively, along with Angela Rayner as a ticket. And that's a unifying ticket in my view. The question I was going to ask you, Becky, is what would you do then to change that perception of Labour? Because I agree with you, the policies are the right policies. What would you do in terms of communications? And how would you approach getting that message out there and rebuilding trust with the electorate?
I mean, there's many things that we've got to do. So first of all, we've got to have a big vision. We've only ever won an election when we've been talking about what the future would look like rather than how bad the Tories are and how we're going to be a little bit less worse than they are. So we've got to have those big visions. And we had things such as the Green Industrial Revolution in the last manifesto, which talked about reindustrialising huge regions right across the United Kingdom and providing the jobs of the future and improving people's homes and making sure that they were, whatever their income group, they were able to access electric vehicles and home insulation and things like that. But it's also about recognising that we've got to speak the language of our communities and I always think about what I would think, if I went back, 30 years and I was talking to myself. We were struggling as a family, but we were proud. We never wanted anyone to think we were struggling. And I never thought that we were poor or we were working class. It's only when I look back now that I realise, actually we were. So we didn't need to be told that we needed to be saved, but we wanted to know that the future was going to look bright. And that's the kind of messaging that we need to have for our communities, that message of real aspiration and not individual aspiration, because sometimes we just think about social mobility and, the odd person being lucky enough to climb a ladder. This is about impressing on people that aspiration is about us all rising up. So whatever your job, wherever you live, whatever your parents do, whatever your postcode, we'll all rise up and you'll have that decent quality of life and that standard of living. And that's what government should be about. It should be about betterment of its people. And we've lost hope in government ever being able to do that over the last 10 years, certainly.
See, it's really interesting what you've said in the last few minutes, because you're coming across in a completely different way to me than you did at the beginning of this leadership campaign. It's almost as if you've kind of discovered your mojo. Do you feel like that?
I'm just being myself. I mean, it's difficult. When you're in the shadow cabinet, you're bound by collective responsibility and you've always got to go out with the message that you're supposed to go out with. Sometimes I felt like I was the only person going out with the message at times. That was part of the problem. But now I feel like I'm able to be myself and say what I think, our country should look like. And I have been saying this in the background, but I think I've been one voice of many, whereas now I've got the opportunity to lead and lead an entire shadow cabinet and party to be able to deliver that message. But, what we were asking for in the manifesto, and this is one of the things that really upset me. We were always told that, bringing certain utilities into public ownership, making sure that workers felt secure. These were radical policies, and they're not radical policies. Other countries around the world do them already, and they provide a better standard of living for their people than we do. And I expect our government to do that, that's what the role of government should be.
But these are policies that were rejected by the electorate. You had the worst election results since 1935, and I haven't seen any of the four remaining candidates, including you, really get to grips with why you lost that election. Yes, it was partly to do with Brexit, but it was also due to your policy platform. Not maybe.
Where's your evidence?
Hang on a second. Well, my evidence is
that the policies weren't popular.
in
themselves.
Well, they didn't cohere together, did they? That was the problem.
There might have been overall narrative.
There might have been individually popular policies, but nobody believed all of this spending pledges. But traditional Labour supporters just couldn't see how they were going to be paid for. And to a lot of people, Rebecca, it seems as though you are the continuity Corbyn candidate. You want to keep all of these policies.
Well, it's not the policies themselves that were the problem. There were a number of issues in this election. So Brexit, you're right, was one. Our voters didn't trust us. Certainly our Leave voters thought we were trying to overturn the result of the referendum, and many of our strong Remain voters thought that we weren't going far enough to have a close relationship with the European Union. Then we had an issue of trust on our policies because there were that many being put out into the media during the election campaign that sometimes people felt overwhelmed. There wasn't a clear message that tied them all together and said, actually, the whole point of all of these policies is to improve your life in this way. It was kind of a little bit chaotic. And then we also had a vast number of policies within the manifesto, but we didn't pinpoint specific ones that would have been popular and just go out to sell them. So what you should do in a general election campaign is have an overarching message, pick out your best policies that are the big sellers, the big winners, if you like, and sell those. You can still have all of the other ones in a manifesto, because in reality, not many people sit down overnight and read through parties' manifestos from cover to cover. They just want to know what the main messages are that they hear about through the media.
Presumably,
and also there were other elements.
Presumably, therefore, that if you become leader, you will not want to keep the services of Seamus Milne, the Director of Communications, or Carrie Murphy, who ran the general election campaign.
Well, I'll have a completely new team. I think, it's important to have a new generation of socialists, if you like, in the leader's office in the party, and they'll be based on capability and expertise as any, good, efficient office should be.
But without those two?
Well, I'm not going to name the people that are going to be in my office at this point, but it'll be a new team, that's all I'll say.
And just finally, you've been endorsed today by the PCS leader, Mark Sawatka, but he claimed the anti-Semitism row was created by Israel to distract from its atrocities. Do you welcome his support?
I think on the anti-Semitism crisis, it's widely recognised that we didn't deal with the issue as robustly as we should have done. And we went from being a reasonably sized party to a huge party within a period of years, and we didn't have a complaints process that was capable of dealing with issues that arose within the party. And that's not just anti-Semitism, that's all forms of racism, discrimination, sexual misconduct, you name it. And we didn't respond quickly enough. We didn't make the processes robust enough. And now I think whoever the leader of the party is going to be, whether that's me or one of the other candidates, we've got to take that robust action. And I've talked about having an independent complaints process to deal with all types of discriminatory complaints, so that people have faith that we have the gold standard of all party processes. And then once we've had that in place, I'd expect other parties to adopt a similar process.
But you're quite happy to have Mark Sawatka's support, him having said that in the past?
Well, Mark Sawatka is a brilliant general secretary in terms of what he's campaigned on and the political campaigns that he's drove forward over the last few years. But certainly on anti-Semitism, I'll say that we haven't tackled the problem within the party. I've been quite open about that.
Now, Rebecca, this is your first time call to LBC, I believe. Were you at all nervous?
It is. No, not of you and Dave, no.
Well, we'd love to have you back in the studio between now and the time that the result is announced, so look forward to seeing you at some point. And thank you for phoning in. That's Rebecca Long-Bailey. Becky from Salford, she's going to be known in the studios in the future. And we'll have more of your calls, I promise, in a moment.
So not the continuity candidate then?
I think that is her major drawback in my view among the general public. Now, in the Labour Party, she could come through, because let's face it, the Labour Party has become a mass membership party under Jeremy Corbyn, and presumably, therefore, most of the new members are on that kind of wing of the party. So it may be a good.
Keir Starmer at the moment in the bookies is odds on, but I think the more that people get to hear and see Becky. I can say that, one, on policy issues, I think she's exceptional in terms of understanding the detail of policies that
she
needed to rebuild.
Better in that 15 minutes than I have ever heard her come across.
She's very natural. And I think the other issues I would say is that, when I look at people, let's turn, Becky's been there, but let's talk about someone like Keir Starmer, for example, who's a good guy, good, competent performer. I just do not get at all how people seriously believe, who are going to vote for the next leader of the Labour Party, that someone like Keir, who was the architect of the Remain position, is going to reconnect to some of the Northern and Midland heartlands who voted Leave. I think Becky will.
OK, more in a moment. It's 8:49.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7.
Transport Secretary Grant Shapps joins me now. No conversation with you currently, Mr. Shapps, is complete without mentioning, of course, HS2. When might we have that decision?
This month. It's a massive decision, and we absolutely have to get this decision right. There's some for and against. That's true throughout the country.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero. Get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Have you ever lost money on a stocks and shares ISA or an investment bond sold by a bank like Lloyds or Halifax? The first thing Goodwin Barrett told me was I could make a claim myself and even take it to the Financial Ombudsman for free if unsuccessful. I looked into it, but I'd much rather spend my time doing something else. Goodwin Barrett ran my claim on my behalf instead. No stress, all the way from investigation to the final payout. Get the compensation you could be owed. Text GOOD to 78900.
The UK has now left the EU, and we are in a transition period until the end of the year. Throughout this period, the government will be forging new partnerships with the EU and the rest of the world. This could lead to new arrangements for trade, travel, and business. To find out about the changes and how they might affect you, go to gov.uk/transition.
It's nearly Valentine's Day, but don't worry if the forecourts run out of cheap roses, because Because in tomorrow's Lottoland's Millionaire Super Draw, you could win £105 million. So to share the love, we're spoiling you with 3 chances to win for the price of 1. Visit lottoland.co.uk to claim your 3-for-1 offer and place your bet. That's amore! That's 3 bets for £2.50. 18s and over. Offer for new customers only and may only be used once. Offer ends 14th of 2nd, 2020. Terms apply. BeGambleAware.org.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see 3 men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
At Morrison's, we're cutting prices on your fruit and veg. So Sweetheart cabbage was 80p, now has a new lower price of 55p. And our British trimmed leeks were £1.50, have a new lower price of £1. Morrison's, we're cutting prices.
Majority of stores subject to availability. Leeks 500 grams.
Leading Britain's conversation. Iain Dale. Tweet at LBC.
8:53. Dave Ward is here taking your calls. Tony's in Woodford. Hello, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Tony, are you there? No, he's not. Let's go to Al, who's in Crewe. Al, what's your question?
Yeah, hi. I'd like to ask Dave a question, if possible, please. I have 2 questions. The first one is, I'm actually a member of the CWU.
Yeah.
And as what's just been described by, whatever her name is, sorry.
Rebecca Long Bailey.
Yeah, that's it. You, like her, also just mentioned the Royal Mail. Now, I'm part of the other part of your union, which is part of BT and Openreach Group, the communication side, that is forever forgotten. So I've got 2 questions. One is, why do you automatically back someone who was ready to throw us to be nationalised and ruin the company? And secondly, why don't you actually poll your union members as to which party they want to back instead of being a so-called traditionalist and go straight to Labour when I, like many thousands, do not back Labour at all, and I've actually stopped paying your political contributions because you automatically back Labour.
Look,
that's my 2 questions.
So let me deal with your second question. That's your right. Under the law, you can opt out of paying the political levy, and you've chosen to do that. So you've declared you're not a supporter of Labour. Why do we support Labour? Because the trade union movement and the Labour Party are part of the same Labour movement, and we openly affiliate to the Labour Party. And when our members choose to pay the political levy, whilst there's also general political campaigns that we will undertake to support the industry, various industries where our members work, we obviously affiliate to the Labour Party. So we do that in a very open way. But I respect your right to not do that. Now, on the Openreach thing, I mean, the reason that I'm speaking about Royal Mail tonight in this sense is because we're just about to undertake a ballot of our members for strike action. So this is not that we're not looking and we don't have our representatives and our leaders who deal with BT and Openreach. And actually, you raise an interesting point, because one of the policies, and I'll be open with you, we had a really good discussion when it was announced that Labour wanted to renationalise BT, Openreach, most of BT, and offer free broadband. We did a live Facebook session with our members. And I noticed that there was a significant difference in opinion amongst our members on that policy. And like you, some of them went, this is going to destroy the company. And what I found, I mean, you know that I come from the other side of the house, but as a General Secretary, of course I'm interested and want to work for our members and do the right thing for our members, whatever company they work in. But what I found interesting, and I think some of this is the history of when BT was privatised compared to perhaps when Royal Mail was privatised. BT was privatised, I think, in 1984. But our members in BT at the moment are under huge attack. You know that, on their pensions, on their terms, their conditions, the companies looking at outsourcing different parts of the company. It's looking at this very moment at compulsory redundancies in some areas. And we should be going back in the strongest way possible. And we are going back in the strongest way possible. So where I disagree, and I'd love to have a chat with you about why Labour's policy, not only was it a good policy, I don't think it was communicated well. I mean, to bring that policy out, a couple of weeks before, I get some of the points you're making here. But I'd love to sit down, because when we had that live session with our members, I think gradually what we saw was that our members began to understand that this was a good policy. By the way, it's a fantastic policy for the country.
Used to say you can't fatten a pig on market day, and he was absolutely right.
Well,
wasn't he?
And that was the problem. Yeah. It was the communication of it. But let's have a further chat about that.
But it wasn't just that, was it? It was
let's have a further chat about that.
Women and goodness knows what else. Al, thank you very much.
Bye, Al.
Michael in Bromley.
Hi, Ian.
Hello.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, Michael.
You're right. As a Labour socialist, Dave, I think that we will never win an election with two factions in one party. The reality is we are a very divided party, and unity probably won't happen. So how can we fix this, Dave? Should we fully go to the left or back to the centre? Because Boris fixed this division with the Tories. So how can we fix this, Dave?
Well, my view is, first of all, I'm an optimist, and I think that the ticket that is standing as the joint ticket, the only one where in the Deputy Leader and Labour Leader they're both supporting each other, actually they come from different perspectives within the Labour Party. Angela Rayner and Becky Long-Bailey, I think they are a joint ticket that can definitely unify and make Labour a broad church. Labour does need to be a broad church. I agree with that. No one wants to have continuous battles over left and right. The other way I think you deal with this problem is, let's look at some of the issues. Ian, we've had this debate at Labour Party conference before, where you said, but these policies are red-blooded socialism. And I said to you,
and they were.
But if you look at the problems, the real problems, put Brexit to one side for 1 minute, climate change, the future world of work, artificial intelligence, a digital revolution, going to absolutely transform the world of work, growing inequality. All of these three things are linked. I challenge anybody, if you really want to change and come through those things, we are going to have policies that people like Ian would traditionally say are on the left. We're going to have control of our utilities to be able to deal ultimately with climate change. You cannot allow these powerful global companies, and I know it's a problem because they're global, to dominate the way they are at the moment. So I do believe that what I'm really saying is, let's focus on the issue, let's focus on who's got the best solution to the problem. And I think Labour will unite around those things.
Alan Johnson used to do your job. Would you ever like to do his, become an MP?
No, I wouldn't, no.
Because in the end...
Trade unionists first, last and always.
Yeah, but trade union leaders have become MPs in the past.
Yeah, they have,
quite successfully in one or two cases. But in the end, you can shout from the sidelines, but the only way things are going to get changed is if you're a politician that can enact change.
No, you see, I disagree with you there. I actually said, the other thing I said immediately after Labour lost, I don't believe trade unionists shouldn't put all their eggs in one basket. We as trade unionists need to step up now. We need to talk together as trade unions across the country. We need to lead the campaign to transform the world of work back in favour of workers, and that's our job.
Well, we haven't talked a lot about the world of work today, but we're going to have you on again very soon to do just that. Dave Ward, thank you very much indeed for joining us. You're listening to LBC. It's 9 o'clock.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock. Health officials say a third patient in the UK to be diagnosed with the coronavirus caught us in Asia, but not in China. The patient, who's thought to have been diagnosed in Brighton, has been transferred to an infectious disease unit in central London. Professor of Emerging Viruses at the